I thought I'd finally found my dream home, a stunning Victorian in a quiet suburb, wraparound porch, stained glass, priced like a steal. I signed the papers, moved in alone, and slept better than I had in years. Until 3 a.m. That first night, I heard crying. Not outside, inside the walls. Then came the scratches on my bedroom door, fresh, deep, like fingernails dragged in rage. The locked room upstairs held children's drawings of screaming figures and a thing rising from the floorboards. Midnight screams from the basement, shadows that watched me sleep, bruises that appeared overnight. And the house, it started feeding on my energy, on my memories, on my soul. I bought the house, but something evil was already living there, and it was hungry for more. Watch if you dare, but don't say I didn't warn you. My name is Emily Harper, 34 years old, single, no kids, no pets, and until last April, no real home to call my own. For the better part of a decade, I'd been stuck in a windowless cubicle on the 42nd floor of a glass tower in the Loop, downtown Chicago, doing corporate compliance for a financial firm that shall remain nameless because they still send me holiday cards every December like nothing ever happened. The job paid well enough to keep me afloat, but it was the kind of work that slowly hollows you out. Endless spreadsheets, regulatory filings, conference calls where grown adults argued over font sizes in footnotes. I'd come home to a one-bedroom rental in Logan Square that smelled faintly of someone else's cooking and fall asleep to the rumble of the L train shaking the building. Weekends were for laundry, grocery runs, and staring at Zillow listings I told myself I couldn't afford. Then one Tuesday in March, everything changed. I was scrolling during lunch, mindless habit, when this house popped up in my feed. Not in Chicago, but in a sleepy suburb called Greenfield, about 20 minutes outside Indianapolis. A 3-story Victorian, built in 1892, Queen Anne style with a turret, fish scale shingles, and a wraparound porch that looked like it belonged in a Hallmark Christmas movie. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, original oak floors, pocket doors, stained glass transoms in the foyer that threw rainbows across the walls when the sun hit them right. The photos made it look like someone had paused time inside. Clawfoot tub, built-in bookshelves, a butler's pantry with those little glass front cabinets. Asking price? $279,000. In this market, that was highway robbery. The listing said motivated seller, foreclosure. Red flag maybe, but also opportunity. I called the realtor that afternoon. Her name was Karen, mid-50s, bleach blonde bob, voice like warm honey over gravel. She didn't waste time with small talk. "You're the first person to ask about it in weeks," she told me. "Most people see the price and think something's wrong. But I've been inside. It's solid. Needs paint, sure, maybe new wiring in spots, but the bones are good." She paused. "You looking to move fast?" I was. I'd saved almost $100,000 for a down payment over the years, telling myself it was for someday. Someday had arrived. 2 weeks later, I flew into Indy on a Friday, rented a mid-size sedan, and drove the 45 minutes north. Greenfield looked like every small Midwestern town you've ever driven through. Brick downtown with a hardware store, a diner called Millie's that still had a neon pie sign, tree-lined streets with American flags on porches. The house sat at the end of Maple Lane, a dead-end street bordered by woods on one side. No through traffic, no nosy neighbors staring from windows, just quiet. Karen met me at the curb in her white Lexus. She handed me the lockbox code and said, "Take your time. I'll be in the car if you need me." I could tell she wanted to give me space. Smart move. People feel things in empty houses. Some walk out smiling, some leave in a hurry. I stepped onto the porch first. The boards creaked under my sneakers, but not in a scary way, more like they were saying hello. The front door was heavy oak with beveled glass. I turned the key and pushed. The smell hit me immediately. Old wood, faint lavender, dust warmed by sunlight. Not musty, not moldy, just lived in, like the house had been holding its breath for a long time. I walked into the foyer and stopped. The stained glass window above the door threw red and blue diamonds across the floor. A grand staircase curved up to the second floor, banister polished dark from years of hands sliding along it. To my left, the parlor had a fireplace with a carved mantel, cherubs and vines. To my right, a dining room big enough for a table that seated 12. I could picture holidays here. Not that I had family who'd come, but still, the possibility felt good. I wandered for almost 2 hours. Every room had something to love. The kitchen's farmhouse sink with the deep apron front, the second floor bedroom with a window seat overlooking the backyard, the third floor attic space that could be a studio or reading nook. There were quirks, sure, some wallpaper peeling in the upstairs hall, a couple of cracked plaster spots, but nothing structural. The basement was dry, the roof looked newer than the listing photos suggested. I even found a small brass key taped under a drawer in the kitchen, probably for some long-lost lockbox or trunk. I pocketed it like a talisman. By the time I came back downstairs, the sun was low and golden, slanting through the windows and painting everything warm. I stood in the middle of the foyer, keys in hand, and felt something shift inside me. Not excitement exactly, something quieter, deeper, peace. The kind I hadn't felt since I was a kid, before my parents divorced and everything got loud and complicated. This place was mine. No lease, no landlord, no shared walls. Just me and 4,000 square feet of possibility. Karen was leaning against her car when I stepped out. She asked, "Well?" I said, "I want it." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. She smiled like she'd known all along. "I'll get the paperwork moving. You can close in 30 days if you're cash ready on the down payment." I was. I'd already pre-approved the mortgage. 30 days felt like forever and no time at all. Closing day came faster than I expected. I drove down from Chicago with a U-Haul trailer hitched to my Subaru, stuffed with boxes, a mattress, and the few pieces of furniture I actually cared about. The title company was in a strip mall off I-65. I signed so many documents my hand cramped. Karen was there, along with the escrow officer and a notary who smelled like peppermint gum. When it was done, they handed me a fat envelope of keys, front door, back door, garage, and even one for the shed out back I hadn't noticed in the photos. I pocketed it like a talisman. I drove to Maple Lane alone. No fanfare, no friends throwing a housewarming, just me. I parked in the driveway, killed the engine, and sat there for a minute listening to the tick of the cooling motor. The house looked different in late afternoon light, taller somehow, more present. I told myself it was just nerves. I carried the first box inside, kitchen stuff, and set it on the counter. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator I'd had delivered the day before. I walked from room to room, turning on lights, opening windows to let in the April breeze. Upstairs, I made the bed in the master bedroom, the one with the bay window and the view of the maple trees. I hung a few pictures, arranged books on a shelf, simple things, normal things. That night, I ordered pizza from the place in town, pepperoni and extra cheese, and ate it sitting on the floor in the parlor and watched shadows stretch across the hardwood. When the delivery guy left, the street went dead quiet. No sirens, no traffic, no neighbors yelling at their dogs, just crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves. I showered in the clawfoot tub, the water pressure surprisingly strong, then crawled under the covers. The mattress was new, the sheets smelled like fabric softener. I turned off the lamp and lay there in the dark, listening. The house settled, soft pops and creaks like old bones stretching after a long day, comforting almost. For the first time in years, I fell asleep without setting an alarm. No racing thoughts about Monday meetings, no dread about the week ahead, just sleep, deep, dreamless, perfect. I had no idea the house had been waiting. I had no idea it was already awake. I didn't unpack everything that first night. Just enough to make the bedroom livable. Fresh sheets on the queen bed, a lamp on the nightstand, my phone charger plugged in, and a half-unzipped suitcase spilling clothes onto the floor. The rest could wait. I was bone-tired from the drive, the closing, the hauling. All I wanted was to crash and wake up in my new life. The master bedroom was on the second floor, front-facing, with tall windows that overlooked Maple Lane and the dark line of trees beyond. The curtains were old lace, probably original to the house, and they filtered the streetlight into soft, moon-colored patterns on the hardwood. I left them open. I liked seeing the outside world. It made the room feel less like a cave. I showered, changed into an oversized t-shirt and sleep shorts, brushed my teeth in the attached bathroom, porcelain sink with brass taps that still had that satisfying heavy click when you turned them, and climbed into bed. The mattress was firm but comfortable. I'd splurged on a new one because why not? New house, new start. I turned off the lamp, pulled the comforter up to my chin, and let out a long breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Sleep came fast. Deep, the kind where hours vanish without dreams. Then something pulled me back. It was subtle at first, a sound so faint I wasn't sure I'd really heard it. I lay there in the dark, eyes open, heart picking up speed. The house was quiet, quieter than my Chicago apartment ever was. No traffic hum, no distant sirens, no neighbor's TV bleeding through the walls. Just the soft ticking of the baseboard heater downstairs and the occasional pop of wood settling. There it was again. A low, muffled sob. Not close, not in the room. More like it was coming from down the hall, or maybe the floor below. A woman crying. Soft, broken little gasps, the kind you make when you're trying not to be heard. It wasn't loud enough to jolt me upright, but it was unmistakable. Human. Miserable. I froze, listened harder. Nothing. I told myself it was the wind, or a neighbor's dog, or maybe the TV in the house next door, volume low. Houses make noises. Pipes contract when the temperature drops, air moves through vents. I'd read about old house syndrome on some Reddit thread once, people swearing they heard footsteps when it was just thermal expansion. I rolled onto my side, pulled the pillow over my head, and closed my eyes. The sound didn't come back. Eventually, my pulse slowed. I drifted off again. When I woke the second time, the digital clock on my phone said 3:17 a.m. The room was colder, not freezing, just enough that my bare arms prickled under the sheet. The lace curtains stirred slightly, even though the windows were closed. I sat up slowly, rubbing my eyes. That's when I noticed the door. It was still closed. I'd latched it before bed because I'm weird about sleeping with doors open, but now there were marks on the inside. 3 long, parallel scratches, starting near the top and dragging all the way down to the knob, deep enough that the paint had flaked off in little white curls, revealing the dark wood underneath. They looked fresh, angry, like someone or something had raked fingernails down the door in frustration or panic. My stomach dropped. I stared at them for a long minute, brain refusing to process. I hadn't heard anything, no scratching sounds while I slept, no thumps, and I live alone. No cat, no dog, no roommate. The scratches weren't there when I went to bed. I would have noticed. I'd run my hand over that door when I was deciding where to hang my robe hook. I got out of bed, bare feet on cold floorboards, walked slowly like approaching something that might bite. Up close, the marks were even more disturbing. Not random, deliberate. The middle one was deepest, almost gouging into the wood. I reached out and touched the edge of one. Splinters, fresh splinters. A chill crawled up my spine. I flipped on the overhead light. Harsh yellow flooded the room. The scratches looked worse in the brightness, violent, personal. I glanced around. Nothing else out of place. Bed still rumpled, suitcase still open, windows locked. I grabbed my phone and snapped a few pictures, zooming in. Proof. For what? I didn't know. Maybe for later when I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. I thought about calling someone. My best friend Jess in Chicago. It was past 3 a.m. here, 2 a.m. there. She'd think I was drunk or having a breakdown. My mom? She'd worry herself sick and start talking about curses and bad juju. No, I wasn't going to be that person. Not on night one. Instead, I did what any practical adult would do. I pushed a chair under the doorknob, not because I thought something was going to come in, I mean, come on, but because it felt like control, something solid.
Then I climbed back into bed, pulled the comforter over my head, and lay there wide awake until the first gray light of dawn leaked through the curtains. Morning came slow and pale. I made coffee in the kitchen, first pot in my new home, poured into a mug I'd brought from Chicago that said, "World's okayest employee." I carried it upstairs and stood in front of the door again. The scratches hadn't vanished. Of course they hadn't. They were real. I ran my fingers over them again. No mistaking it. They weren't from moving furniture or hanging pictures, too high, too straight, too deep. Fingernails. Or claws. The thought made my coffee turn sour in my stomach. I told myself it was probably the previous owners. Maybe they had a big dog that liked to scratch when it was shut out, or kids messing around before the foreclosure. Houses keep marks, scars. That's all this was. But deep down, I knew better, because the crying I heard wasn't a dog, and the scratches weren't old. They were new, fresh as the night I'd spent under this roof. I spent the rest of the morning trying to shake it off. I unpacked boxes, hung clothes in the closet, made lists of things I needed. Paint for the hallway, a new shower curtain, maybe a security camera for the front porch just in case. Normal stuff, everyday stuff. But every time I passed that door, I looked at the scratches. And every time I looked, they seemed a little deeper, like they were growing or waiting. That first full day in the house, I kept telling myself it was nothing, just an old place settling into new ownership, just my imagination running on empty after too much change. I almost believed it. Almost. But that night, when the clock hit 3:17 again, the crying came back. Softer this time. Closer. And the chair I'd wedged under the doorknob, it scraped across the floor, all by itself. Just an inch. Just enough to make the hairs on my arms stand straight up.
The scratches on the bedroom door stayed with me like a bruise you keep pressing to see if it still hurts. I didn't mention them to anyone. Not Jess over our weekly FaceTime, not my mom when she texted asking if the house was charming yet. I told myself I was being dramatic. New home nerves, sleep deprivation from the move, maybe even carbon monoxide from some old furnace I hadn't serviced yet. There were explanations, rational ones. I clung to them. But the house had other plans. Up on the second floor, past the master bedroom, and down a short hallway lined with faded floral wallpaper, there was a door I hadn't paid much attention to during my first walkthrough. Smaller than the others, solid oak, no glass panel, a heavy brass padlock looped through a hasp on the frame, the kind you see on storage sheds or old jail cells. The realtor, Karen, had waved it off casually when I asked. Probably just storage. Previous owners left junk inside. Keys long gone, lost in the shuffle during foreclosure. You can cut it off if you want, but honestly, most buyers just leave it. Less hassle. I'd nodded then, more interested in the turret room's built-in bookshelves than some locked closet. But now, with the scratches fresh in my mind and the crying still echoing in my ears every night around 3 a.m., that door started to feel like a loose tooth I couldn't stop tonguing. On the third day, I drove to the hardware store in town. Greenfield's Ace was the kind of place where the owner knows your name after one visit. I bought a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters, red handles, 36 inches long, and a new padlock, just in case. The cashier, a guy in his 60s with a name tag that read Dale, raised an eyebrow. Big project? Old house, locked room. Curiosity killed the cat, right? Dale chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Some rooms stay locked for a reason, hun. Be careful what you let out. I laughed it off, paid, and left. But his words stuck like burrs. Back home, I carried the cutters upstairs. The hallway felt narrower in the afternoon light, shadows pooling in the corners, even though the sun was still high. I set the tool down, wiped my palms on my jeans, and gripped the lock. The shackle was rusted but thick. One hard squeeze, metal groaned, resisted, then a sharp snap. The padlock fell to the floor with a dull clunk. I hesitated, heart thumping louder than it should. Then I pushed the door open. A wall of stale air hit me. Dust, mildew, something faintly metallic underneath.
No windows, just darkness. I fumbled for the light switch inside the jamb. A single bare bolt clicked on, swinging slightly on its cord and throwing wild shadows across the small space. The room was tiny, maybe 8 by 10 feet. Bare floorboards, no rug, a single piece of furniture, an old wooden rocking chair painted white but chipped to gray in places, positioned dead center facing the far wall like someone had sat there staring at nothing for years. The rockers were worn smooth, almost polished from use. And the walls. Every inch was covered in children's drawings, taped up haphazardly with yellowed Scotch tape. Crayon, marker, pencil, some on construction paper, some on notebook sheets torn from spiral bindings. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe. Stick figures mostly. Tall ones with long arms and no faces, short ones with big round heads and wide screaming mouths. Black eyes, huge, empty circles scratched so hard the paper tore in places. I stepped inside, breath shallow. One drawing near the door showed a house, our house, recognizable by the turret and porch. A little girl stood in the doorway, arms outstretched. Something dark and shapeless rose from the floor behind her, fingers like smoke reaching for her ankles. Another showed the same girl locked in a room, this room perhaps, pounding on the door while eyes watched from the corners. A third, a woman, long hair, dress, standing in a hallway while tendrils snaked up from the floorboards and wrapped around her legs, pulling downward. The woman's mouth was open in a perfect O of terror. My mouth went dry. I started ripping them down, not carefully, frantically. Tape tore, paper crinkled. I balled them up and shoved them into a trash bag I'd brought up. The rocking chair sat silent, unmoving. I avoided looking at it too long. When the walls were bare, the room felt smaller, colder, exposed. I dragged the bag downstairs, out to the curb for trash pickup the next morning, watched it sit there like evidence I was disposing of. Then I went back up, determined to reclaim the space. I opened the windows in the hallway to air it out, even though there was no window in the locked room itself, and left the door wide open. Fresh start, that's what I told myself. That night, I went to bed earlier than usual, exhausted. The house was quiet, no crying, no scraping. I almost felt normal, almost believed I'd exorcised whatever weirdness had been lingering. Around midnight, I woke to a sound so soft I thought I'd dreamed it. Creak, creak, slow, rhythmic, coming down the hall. I sat up. The hallway light was off, I always turned it off before bed, but a faint glow spilled from the open doorway of the locked room. Not electric, more like moonlight, except the moon was new and the curtains were drawn. Creak, creak, back and forth. I slipped out of bed, bare feet silent on the floor, heart hammering harder than it should. I padded down the hall, staying close to the wall like that would protect me somehow. The rocking chair was moving. Not fast, not violently, just a gentle, deliberate rocking, as if someone very light, very small was sitting in it, pushing with tiny feet. I stood frozen in the doorway. The bulb was still off. The room was dark except for that strange silver light that seemed to come from nowhere. The chair rocked. Creak, creak. Empty. No one in it, but the motion was unmistakable. I reached for the light switch. Click. Nothing. The bulb stayed dark. The rocking didn't stop. I backed away slowly. 1 step, 2. My heel hit the floorboard behind me and it groaned. The chair stopped. Dead still. Then, soft, almost conversational, a child's voice whispered from inside the room, not loud enough to make out words, just a murmur, a sigh, a question. I turned and ran back to my bedroom, slammed the door, locked it, pushed the chair under the knob again, even though I knew it was pointless. I didn't sleep. I sat against the headboard with every light on, phone in hand, scrolling through nothing, waiting for dawn. In the morning, the rocking chair was still there, exactly where I'd left it, facing the wall, motionless. But when I looked closer, I saw something new on the floorboards in front of it. 3 small, perfect footprints in the dust, child-sized, bare, fresh.
The scratches on the bedroom door stayed with me like a bruise you keep pressing to see if it still hurts. I didn't mention them to anyone. Not Jess over our weekly FaceTime, not my mom when she texted asking if the house was charming yet. I told myself I was being dramatic. New home nerves, sleep deprivation from the move, maybe even carbon monoxide from some old furnace I hadn't serviced yet. There were explanations, rational ones. I clung to them. But the house had other plans. Up on the second floor, past the master bedroom and down a short hallway lined with faded floral wallpaper, there was a door I hadn't paid much attention to during my first walkthrough. Smaller than the others, solid oak, no glass panel. A heavy brass padlock looped through a hasp on the frame, the kind you see on storage sheds or old jail cells. The realtor, Karen, had waved it off casually when I asked. Probably just storage. Previous owners left junk inside. Keys long gone, lost in the shuffle during foreclosure. You can cut it off if you want, but honestly, most buyers just leave it. Less hassle. I nodded then, more interested in the turret room's built-in bookshelves than some locked closet. But now, with the scratches fresh in my mind and the crying still echoing in my ears every night around 3 a.m., that door started to feel like a loose tooth I couldn't stop tonguing. On the third day, I drove to the hardware store in town. Greenfield's Ace was the kind of place where the owner knows your name after one visit. I bought a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters, red handles 36 inches long, and a new padlock, just in case. The cashier, a guy in his 60s with a name tag that read Dale, raised an eyebrow. Big project? Old house. Locked room. Curiosity killed the cat, right? Dale chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Some rooms stay locked for a reason, hun. Be careful what you let out. I laughed it off, paid, and left, but his words stuck like burrs. Back home, I carried the cutters upstairs. The hallway felt narrower in the afternoon light, shadows pooling in the corners even though the sun was still high. I set the tool down, wiped my palms on my jeans, and gripped the lock. The shackle was rusted but thick. One hard squeeze, metal groaned, resisted, then a sharp snap. The padlock fell to the floor with a dull clunk. I hesitated, heart thumping louder than it should. Then I pushed the door open. A wall of stale air hit me, dust, mildew, something faintly metallic underneath. No windows, just darkness. I fumbled for the light switch inside the jamb. A single bare bulb clicked on, swinging slightly on its cord and throwing wild shadows across the small space. The room was tiny, maybe 8 by 10 feet, bare floorboards, no rug, a single piece of furniture, an old wooden rocking chair, painted white but chipped to gray in places, positioned dead center facing the far wall, like someone had sat there staring at nothing for years. The rockers were worn smooth, almost polished from use. And the walls. Every inch was covered in children's drawings, taped up haphazardly with yellowed Scotch tape, crayon, marker, pencil, some on construction paper, some on notebook sheets torn from spiral bindings. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe. Stick figures mostly, tall ones with long arms and no faces, short ones with big round heads and wide, screaming mouths. Black eyes, huge, empty circles scratched so hard the paper tore in places. I stepped inside, breath shallow. One drawing near the door showed a house, our house, recognizable by the turret and porch. A little girl stood in the doorway, arms outstretched. Something dark and shapeless rose from the floor behind her, fingers like smoke reaching for her ankles. Another showed the same girl locked in a room, this room maybe, pounding on the door while eyes watched from the corners. A third, a woman, long hair, dress, standing in a hallway while tendrils snaked up from the floorboards and wrapped around her legs, pulling downward. The woman's mouth was open in a perfect O of terror. My mouth went dry. I started ripping them down, not carefully, frantically. Tape tore, paper crinkled. I balled them up and shoved them into a trash bag I'd brought up. The rocking chair sat silent, unmoving. I avoided looking at it too long. When the walls were bare, the room felt smaller, colder, exposed. I dragged the bag downstairs, out to the curb for trash pickup the next morning, watched it sit there like evidence I was disposing of. Then I went back up, determined to reclaim the space. I opened the windows in the hallway to air it out, even though there was no window in the locked room itself, and left the door wide open. Fresh start.
That's what I told myself. That night, I went to bed earlier than usual, exhausted. The house was quiet, no crying, no scraping. I almost felt normal, almost believed I'd exorcised whatever weirdness had been lingering. Around midnight, I woke to a sound so soft I thought I dreamed it. Creak, creak, slow, rhythmic, coming from down the hall. I sat up, the hallway light was off, I always turned it off before bed, but a faint glow spilled from the open doorway of the locked room. Not electric, more like moonlight, except the moon was new and the curtains were drawn. Creak, creak, back and forth. I slipped out of bed, bare feet silent on the floor, heart hammering harder than it should. I padded down the hall, staying close to the wall like that would protect me somehow. The rocking chair was moving. Not fast, not violently, just a gentle, deliberate rocking, as if someone very light, very small was sitting in it, pushing with tiny feet. I stood frozen in the doorway. The bulb was still off. The room was dark except for that strange silver light that seemed to come from nowhere. The rocking chair rocked. Creak, creak. Empty. No one in it, but the motion was unmistakable. I reached for the light switch. Click. Nothing. The bulb stayed dark. The rocking didn't stop. I backed away slowly. 1 step, 2. My heel hit the floorboard behind me and it groaned. The chair stopped, dead still. Then, soft, almost conversational, a child's voice whispered from inside the room, not loud enough to make out words, just a murmur, a sigh, a question. I turned and ran back to my bedroom, slammed the door, locked it, pushed the chair under the knob again, even though I knew it was pointless. I didn't sleep. I sat against the headboard with every light on, phone in hand, scrolling through nothing, waiting for dawn. In the morning, the rocking chair was still there, exactly where I left it, facing the wall, motionless. But when I looked closer, I saw something new on the floorboards in front of it. 3 small, perfect footprints in the dust, child-sized, bare, fresh.
By the end of the first week, I'd developed a routine that felt almost normal. Coffee at dawn in the kitchen while the sun crept over the maple trees, work from the dining room table, remote compliance audits for the same firm that had kept me chained to Chicago, grocery runs to the Kroger on the edge of town, small talk with a cashier who always asked if I was settling in okay. I smiled and said yes. I lied. The house was quiet during the day, too quiet sometimes, but the real trouble always waited until night. It started with bumps, soft thuds like someone dropping a book upstairs when no one was there, doors creaking open an inch or two when I'd sworn I'd closed them tight, floorboards groaning in empty rooms. I told myself it was the house adjusting, old timbers expanding and contracting with the spring temperature swings. I even Googled new old house noises and read forum after forum of people reassuring each other it was normal. I wanted to believe them so badly, I almost convinced myself. Then the screams began. The first one came at exactly 12:03 a.m. on the 8th night. I'd fallen asleep on the couch in the parlor after binge-watching some mindless true crime docuseries. Ironic, in hindsight. I jolted awake, heart slamming against my ribs. The sound wasn't loud at first, more like a distant wail carried on the wind. High-pitched, raw, animalistic. Not quite human, but close enough to make every hair on my body stand on end. It rose and fell, echoing from somewhere below me. The basement. I sat up slowly, blanket sliding to the floor. The parlor was dark except for the blue glow of the TV menu screen. I muted it, listened. There it was again, sharper this time, a scream that started as a moan and ended in a guttural, choking rasp. Pain, rage, desperation, all at once. It vibrated through the floorboards, up into my bare feet. I grabbed my phone, flashlight on, volume low, and crept toward the hallway. The basement door was at the back of the house, tucked under the main staircase. I always kept it closed and locked with a simple slide bolt because the stairs were steep and I didn't trust the railing yet. When I reached it, the bolt was still in place. The door was shut, but the screams were definitely coming from behind it. I pressed my ear to the wood.
Cold seeped through. The sound swelled, louder, closer, like whatever was making it had moved up the stairs and was waiting just on the other side. My hand hovered over the bolt. Every instinct screamed not to open it. I didn't. Instead, I backed away, turned, and half ran upstairs to my bedroom, locked the door, wedged the chair under the knob again, sat on the bed with the lights blazing until the screams faded around 1:30 a.m. They didn't stop abruptly, they just trailed off, like something had gotten what it wanted and gone back to sleep. The next morning, I told myself I'd imagined the intensity. Maybe it was a fox in the woods behind the house, or a neighbor's TV, or wind whistling through an old vent. Rationalizations came easy in daylight. But that night, it happened again. 12:03 on the dot. Same pitch, same rhythm. Only this time, the screams were clearer. Words? Not quite. More like distorted syllables. Names, maybe, or pleas, mangled by whatever throat was producing them. I called Jess. It was late in Chicago, but she picked up on the second ring. Em? You okay? It's almost 1 here. I'm hearing things. Screams from the basement. Every night at midnight. Silence. Then a soft laugh. Girl, you're stressed. New house, new city, alone. Your brain's playing tricks. Put on some white noise. Sleep with music. I'm not imagining it. I believe you think you're hearing it, but come on, basements don't scream. I hung up feeling smaller. The third night, I tried to ignore it. Put in earbuds, cranked a sleep playlist. Didn't work. The screams cut right through, vibrating in my skull like they were inside me. On the fourth night, I decided to face it. I waited until 11:59 p.m., phone in one hand, heavy flashlight in the other like a club. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, staring at the closed door, pulse roaring in my ears. 12:03. The first scream ripped out, louder than before, closer. I slid the bolt back. The door swung inward on its own, just an inch. I pushed it the rest of the way. Cold air rushed up like breath, musty, damp, metallic. I flicked on the flashlight and started down. The stairs were narrow, steep, painted battleship gray years ago. Each step creaked. Halfway down, the temperature dropped another 10 degrees. My breath fogged. At the bottom, the beams swept across concrete floor, exposed brick walls, a rusted water heater, shelves of forgotten canning jars. Nothing moved. Nothing screamed. Then it came again, right in front of me. A scream so loud and close, I stumbled back, shoulder hitting the stair riser. The sound wasn't echoing anymore. It was here, in the room, filling the space. I swung the light wildly. Shadows leapt. Nothing. Stop, I whispered. My voice cracked. The screaming cut off mid-note. Silence pressed in, thick, suffocating. Then a whisper, not from the dark, from everywhere at once. Emily. Harper. My full name, slow, wet, like it was tasting the syllables. I ran, up the stairs, slamming the door behind me, throwing the bolt. I didn't stop until I was in my bedroom, lights on, back against the wall. I didn't sleep. The next day, I invited Jess to visit. She flew in that weekend, said she needed a break from the city. We drank wine on the porch, laughed about old times, ordered takeout from Millie's Diner. She stayed 2 nights. She heard nothing. No bumps, no cries, no screams. "You're messing with me," she said Sunday morning over coffee. "There's nothing here but creaky floors and your overactive imagination." I wanted to believe her. I almost did. She left Monday afternoon. I waved from the porch until her rental car disappeared around the corner. That night, alone again, the screams returned. Louder, closer. And this time, when I went to the basement door at 12:03, it wasn't closed. It stood wide open, a black maw at the top of the stairs, waiting. I didn't go down. I couldn't. But the whisper did. Emily. Harper. It drifted up the stairs like smoke. And for the first time, I answered. "Who are you?" The house didn't reply, but something laughed. Low, wet, satisfied. like it had finally been acknowledged.
I couldn't pretend anymore. The bruises on my ribs had faded to sickly yellow-green, but new ones appeared every few nights, always the same pattern, always fresh in the morning. The shadows no longer waited for darkness. They slipped into daylight corners, stretched across floors like spilled ink, retreated only when I stared them down. Sleep was a joke. I'd doze for an hour, wake gasping, convinced cold fingers were wrapped around my throat. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, and it was winning. I needed answers, not ghost stories from Reddit or sage smudging TikToks, real ones, paper trails. History doesn't lie the way shadows do. The Marion County Recorder's Office was in a squat government building downtown Indianapolis, 30 minutes south on I-65. I drove there on a Tuesday morning when the sky was the color of dirty dishwater. The clerk behind the counter, name tag said Marla, mid-50s, reading glasses on a chain, barely looked up when I asked for property records on 1427 Maple Lane, Greenfield. Deed history, tax rolls, full chain of title? She asked, already typing. All of it, I said, as far back as you've got. She printed a thick stack, almost 40 pages, and slid it across with a tired smile. That'll be $10, cash or card. I paid cash, didn't want a digital trail for some reason. Back in my car in the parking garage, I flipped through the pages with shaking hands. The house had changed hands a lot in the last century, normal for old Victorians, but one name jumped out immediately. Clara Voss purchased the property in 1924 for $4,800. Widow. Husband, Elias Voss, died in a mill accident the year before. Clara was 32, listed as sole owner. She lived there with one dependent, Abigail Voss, daughter, born 1919. I cross-referenced the tax rolls. Payments were regular until 1928. Then they stopped. Foreclosure notice filed in 1931. The house sat empty until the bank sold it in 1934 to a family named Hargrove. No mention of what happened to Clara or Abigail. I needed more. Next stop, the Greenfield Public Library, small brick building on Main Street, smelling like old paper and lemon polish. The reference librarian, an older woman named Mrs. Evelyn Carter, perked up when I asked about local history files on Maple Lane. "Oh, the Voss place," she said, eyes narrowing behind cat-eye glasses. "You bought it, didn't you? Word gets around fast in a town this size." I nodded, throat tight. "I'm trying to learn about the previous owners." She led me to a back room with microfilm readers and bound volumes of old newspapers. "We've got the Greenfield Gazette on film from 1980 to 1950. Start with 1927 to 1929. That's when things got interesting." I spent 4 hours hunched over the flickering screen. The first hit was small, a one-column notice in the Society page, June 1927. Mrs. Clara Voss and daughter Abigail attended the church picnic at First Presbyterian. Abigail, 8, won the three-legged race with her cousin Thomas. Then silence for months. Then, October 1927, a short police blotter item. Neighbors reported hearing prolonged crying from the Voss residence on Maple Lane. Officers responded. Mrs. Voss stated her daughter was ill with a fever. No further action. Another, 2 weeks later, additional complaints of disturbance at Voss home. Mrs. Voss advised daughter had run away briefly, but was recovered. Advised to keep child indoors. Run away. Recovered. Then nothing, until March 1928. A front-page story, small below the fold. Local girl missing. Abigail Voss, 8, disappeared from home on Maple Lane. Mother, Clara Voss, reports child wandered off during evening hours. Search parties organized. Reward offered. A grainy photo. Abigail in pigtails, gap-toothed smile, wearing a white dress. She looked like any little girl. Innocent. Happy. No follow-up articles about finding her. Nothing. The paper moved on to crop reports and a new stoplight being installed on Main Street.
I kept scrolling. 1929, a classified ad from Clara Voss. Housekeeper wanted, live-in preferred, must be discreet, no questions, apply in person 1427 Maple Lane. No one responded, at least not in print. Then, 1930, tax delinquency notice. Clara Voss delinquent 3 years, property to be auctioned. That was it for Clara. I asked Mrs. Carter if there were any oral histories, diaries, anything unofficial. She hesitated. There's a box in the local history collection, donated by the Hargrove family in the 1970s when they sold the house. They said it was found in the attic, mostly junk, but some papers. She pulled it out, cardboard banker's box, labeled in faded marker, Voss/Hargrove, 1427 Maple. Inside, yellowed receipts, a cracked photo album, most pictures missing, a child's mitten, and a small leather-bound notebook. No name on the cover. I opened it carefully. Handwriting, feminine, tight, precise. Clara's, I assumed. Entries from 1927. Abigail is restless at night, says something watches her from under the bed. I tell her it's only shadows. She cries until she sleeps. Elias's old tools still in the basement. I hear them moving sometimes when I'm alone. I tell myself it's rats. Then, dated November 15th, 1927, I locked her in the small room upstairs. She wouldn't stop screaming about the dark thing that comes up through the floor. I told her it was for her own good, to keep her safe. She pounded on the door for hours. Then she stopped. I sat outside with my back to the wood and wept. I cannot open it yet. I cannot bear what I might find. My hands went cold. Next entry, 2 days later. She is quiet now. Too quiet. I left food by the door. It is untouched. The house feels satisfied, like it has eaten. More entries grew shorter, desperate. I hear her voice sometimes, not from the room, from within the walls, whispering my name. The neighbors talk. They say I've done something terrible. They don't understand. The house needs her. It always hungers. Last entry, March 3rd, 1928. I cannot stay. It wants more. It will take me too if I let it. Abigail is gone. Not dead. Taken. Absorbed. I feel her in the floorboards, in the shadows. I must leave before it finishes with me. No more pages. I closed the notebook. My fingers left damp prints on the leather. Mrs. Carter watched me from the doorway. Find what you were looking for? I swallowed. More than I wanted. She nodded slowly. Some houses keep their secrets better than others. That one never did. I left with copies of the key articles and the notebook pages scanned on my phone. Drove home in silence, windows down, cold air blasting to keep me awake. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked different, taller, hungrier. The turret window on the 3rd floor caught the last of the dying sun and flashed red, like an eye opening. I didn't go inside right away. I sat in the car, engine running, staring at the front porch. Somewhere inside, a floorboard creaked. Once, twice, like footsteps coming down the stairs to greet me. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. The house wasn't just waiting anymore. It knew I knew, and it was ready for the next course.
The notebook changed everything. After reading Clara's words, I couldn't unsee it. The house wasn't haunted in the Hollywood sense. No rattling chains, no floating objects, no friendly ghost trying to warn me. It was something worse, parasitic, patient. It didn't just scare you away, it kept you, fed on you, slowly, until there was nothing left to take. I started noticing the changes in my body first. Subtle at first, like background noise you learn to ignore. My jeans hung looser around the waist. My cheekbones looked sharper in the bathroom mirror. I'd stand there brushing my teeth, staring at the hollows under my eyes, telling myself it was stress, new house anxiety, bad sleep. I hadn't eaten much lately. Food tasted wrong, bland, like chewing cardboard soaked in ash.
I'd force down toast, eggs, pasta, whatever was easy, but my stomach rebelled halfway through every meal. Nausea rolled in waves. I lost my appetite entirely some days. Others I'd eat mechanically, then run to the sink and dry heave until my ribs ached. The scale in the guest bathroom confirmed it. I'd dropped 12 pounds in under 3 weeks. My collarbones stood out like ridges. My wrists looked fragile. I told myself I'd start eating better tomorrow. Always tomorrow. Sleep was worse. I'd collapse into bed around midnight, exhausted, and wake up feeling like I'd been running all night. Muscles sore, throat raw. Dreams blurred into nightmares that felt too real. Clara's face, gray, sunken, leaning over me, whispering, "It needs more." Abigail's small hands clawing at the inside of the locked room door, nails splintering wood. And always the thing in the basement, blacker than black, formless, endless, reaching up through the floorboards like roots, sliding into my chest, wrapping around my heart, pulling. Not hard, not violent, just steady, inexorable, like gravity, but colder. I'd wake gasping, sheets soaked in sweat, convinced I could still feel those tendrils retracting as consciousness returned. My pulse would race for minutes. I'd lie there in the dark, lights off because even the smallest bulb felt too bright now, listening to my own breathing slow. Then I'd notice the bruises again, new ones blooming across my sternum, my hips, my thighs, finger-shaped, always 5 on each side, perfect symmetry, like the house was marking territory. I stopped going out as much. The thought of leaving the property made my skin crawl, like stepping beyond the porch was abandoning something important, something that needed me. I worked from home anyway, Zoom calls with colleagues who commented on how tired I looked, how pale. I laughed it off, just adjusting to the Midwest, I'd say. They bought it, or pretended to. My reflection started lying to me. I'd catch glimpses in hallway mirrors, windows, the toaster's chrome side, eyes too large, skin translucent, lips bloodless. I looked hollowed out, like someone had scooped out the parts that made me Emily and left the shell. I avoided mirrors after a while, covered the big one in the foyer with a drop cloth, told myself it was to protect the glass during painting, a project I never started. Food kept failing me. I tried forcing meals, peanut butter on crackers, yogurt, protein shakes from the gas station. Nothing stayed down long. My energy tanked. I'd climb the stairs and need to sit halfway up, head spinning. Simple tasks, unloading the dishwasher, carrying laundry, left me winded. I slept 14, 15 hours some days and woke up more drained than before, like the rest hadn't counted, like something had been siphoning it while I dreamed. One afternoon, I tried to leave, really leave. Packed a duffel with clothes, laptop, charger, got in the Subaru, turned the key, the engine caught. Idled rough. I put it in reverse. Nothing happened. The car rolled backward maybe 3 feet, then stopped like hitting an invisible wall. I floored it. Tires spun on gravel. The house loomed in the rear view. Tall, dark windows watching. The engine revved uselessly. I killed it, sat there breathing hard. When I looked up, the porch light was on. I hadn't turned it on. It flickered once, slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat. I got out, walked back inside, couldn't explain why. My legs moved on their own. The door closed behind me with a soft click. The deadbolt slid home without me touching it. That night, the nightmares sharpened. I was in the basement, concrete cold under my bare feet. The thing was there, not shadow anymore, but substance, thick, tar-like, pooling across the floor, rising in slow waves. It spoke without a mouth. "Your fear is sweet," it said, voice wet, ancient, layered, like many voices overlapping. "Your loneliness, delicious. Give us more." I tried to run, legs heavy. It wrapped around my ankles, cold, slick, alive, climbed my calves, thighs, torso, pressed into my chest. I felt it enter, not through skin, but through the spaces between ribs, into lungs, heart, stomach, pulling, draining. I screamed, but no sound came, just bubbles in my throat. I woke on the floor of the guest room, not in bed, on the hardwood, curled fetal, shirt soaked, shaking. When I stood, my legs wobbled. I staggered to the bathroom, flipped on the light. My reflection stared back, Gaunt, eyes sunk so deep they looked bruised, skin grayish, lips cracked. But worst, my pupils. They weren't round anymore, elongated, slitted, like a cat's, or something older. I blinked hard, looked again. Normal. I told myself it was the light, exhaustion, hallucination, but I knew better. The house wasn't just feeding on my fear or loneliness, it was feeding on me, my life force, my essence, whatever you want to call the thing that makes a person more than meat and bone. Every night it took a little more. Every day I had less to give. I started writing things down, notes on my phone, scraps of paper, because I was afraid I'd forget my mom's birthday, forget the sound of Jess's laugh, forget my own name sometimes, mid-sentence. Emily Harper. It felt distant, like a name that belonged to someone else. The thing in the basement didn't need to scream anymore. It didn't need shadows at the foot of my bed. It was inside, quiet, patient, waiting for the last bite. And the worst part of me didn't want it to stop, because when it fed, for just a second, the emptiness hurt less.
I was running out of denial. The weight loss had turned drastic, 23 pounds in 6 weeks. My clothes hung like sacks. My face looked like someone else's, cheeks sunken, eyes bruised looking, skin the color of old parchment. I avoided mirrors entirely now, covered every reflective surface in the house with towels, sheets, anything. Even the toaster went into a drawer. I couldn't stand seeing what was left of me. The feeding never stopped. Not really. Even when the house was quiet, I felt it, a slow, constant drain, like a battery leaking power drop by drop. My thoughts scattered. I'd start a sentence and lose the end. Names slipped away. Faces from childhood blurred at the edges. I wrote reminders on sticky notes, my mom's phone number, my own birthday, simple things, and stuck them everywhere. The fridge, the bathroom mirror, under the towel, the dashboard of my car. I was terrified that one day I'd wake up and forget who Emily Harper even was. I needed help, real help. Not sage or salt lines or YouTube cleansing videos, something stronger. I found Father Michael through a desperate Google search at 4 a.m. Catholic Priest Indianapolis Deliverance Ministry. His name came up on a small diocesan website. Father Michael Donnelly, associate pastor at St. Augustine's, trained in minor exorcisms and deliverance prayer. No dramatic testimonials, no TV specials, just a quiet bio and a contact form. I filled it out at dawn, hands shaking so badly I had to retype 3 times. He called back the same afternoon, voice calm, measured, Midwestern flat. "Miss Harper, I read your message. You sound frightened. Can you tell me more?" I did. Everything. The scratches, the crying, the rocking chair, the screams, the shadows, the bruises, Clara's notebook, the way the house felt alive and hungry. I cried through half of it. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long pause. "I'll come tomorrow evening," he said, "after the 6 p.m. Mass. Bring holy water if you have any. If not, I'll bring some." I didn't have any. I barely had the energy to vacuum. He arrived at 7:15 the next night in a plain black sedan, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, wire-rimmed glasses, wearing a gray clerical shirt and black slacks. No collar, no robes. He carried a small leather case like a doctor's bag and a thermos of holy water. I met him on the porch. The house lights were all on, every bulb blazing, but the windows still looked dark. "Emily," he said, offering a firm handshake, "let's go inside." We started in the foyer. He set the case down, opened it, Bible, crucifix, vial of oil, small bell, prayer book. He asked me to walk him through the house, room by room. I did, told him about the locked room, now permanently open, the basement, the master bedroom where the shadow had pressed on my chest. He listened, nodding, occasionally murmuring prayers under his breath. In the parlor, he stopped, closed his eyes, breathed deep. There's something here, old. Not a soul, not a demon in the classical sense, something parasitic. It's attached to the structure itself, feeding on life energy, on the soul's vitality. My stomach twisted.
Can he get rid of it? I can try to weaken it, drive it back, but if it's rooted deep, you may need to leave permanently. We began in the basement. He descended first, I followed, flashlight in hand, even though the single bulb worked. The air was colder than usual, breath fogging. Father Michael set up a small altar on an old card table, crucifix, Bible open to Psalm 91, holy water bowl. He began the prayers, Latin mixed with English, In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, voice steady, commanding. Halfway through the Our Father, the temperature plummeted, my teeth chattered, the bulb overhead flickered once, twice, then died. Darkness swallowed us. Only his small LED flashlight remained. The rocking chair. Upstairs. We both heard it. Creak, creak, fast, violent, like someone rocking in fury. Father Michael didn't flinch, kept praying, louder now, sprinkled holy water towards the stairs. The droplets hissed when they hit the concrete, like landing on a hot pan. Then the books. Old paperbacks on the basement shelves, forgotten novels from the previous owners, flew off, not gently, hard, smacking the far wall, pages fluttering like dying birds. One hit Father Michael's shoulder. He didn't stop. The rocking grew frantic. A child's giggle, high, broken, echoed from above. Then a woman's scream, Clara's scream, perhaps, cut through it. Father Michael's cross, the large silver one around his neck, began to glow red at the edges. Not metaphorically, literally. The metal heated. He winced, yanked it off, dropped it. The chain sizzled on the floor. He looked at me, eyes wide, terrified. This isn't possession. It's infestation. The house is the entity. It's feeding on you, your soul, your will, your very being. You have to leave. Now, tonight. Don't pack, just go. I stared at him. But now, Emily. He grabbed his bag, turned, started up the stairs. I followed. Halfway up, the basement door slammed shut above us. The bolt slid home, locked from the outside. Father Michael pushed, pounded, prayed louder. The door didn't budge. Then, silence. The rocking stopped. The giggles stopped. The house held its breath. The bolt slid back, slowly, deliberately. The door creaked open on its own. Father Michael didn't hesitate. He ran, up the stairs, through the kitchen, out the front door. Didn't look back. His car peeled out of the driveway, tires squealing on gravel. I stood in the foyer alone. The porch light flickered, once, slow, mocking. I didn't chase him. I couldn't. My legs felt leaden. My chest ached where the thing had pressed before. I walked back inside, closed the door, locked it. The house settled around me like a satisfied sigh. Father Michael never called again, never returned emails. When I drove to St. Augustine's 2 days later, the secretary said he'd taken a sudden leave of absence, personal reasons, no forwarding contact. I stood in the parking lot staring at the church steeple. The bruises on my ribs throbbed in time with my heartbeat. I drove home. The rocking chair was waiting for me in the hallway when I walked in, facing me, rocking gently, back and forth. Welcome home.
I tried to run. Really tried this time. It was a Thursday night, 2 days after Father Michael fled like the devil himself was chasing him. I'd spent the afternoon packing. Not everything, just the essentials. Laptop, charger, passport. Why, I don't know, I wasn't leaving the country. A few changes of clothes, my mom's old silver necklace that she gave me before she moved to Florida. I stuffed it all into a black duffel and a backpack, left the rest. Furniture, books, dishes, let the house have them. I didn't care anymore. I zipped the bags, slung the backpack over one shoulder, grabbed the duffel with my free hand, and walked to the front door. The porch light was off. I hadn't touched the switch. The house was dark, except for the faint glow from the street lamp filtering through the stained glass transom. I reached for the knob. It wouldn't turn. Locked. From the inside. I twisted harder. Nothing. The deadbolt was engaged. I could see the brass tongue extended into the strike plate. I hadn't locked it. I never locked the front door when I was home during the day. Panic rose sharp and hot in my throat. I dropped the bags, ran to the back door, kitchen exit, French doors to the yard, same thing. Knob frozen, deadbolt thrown. I rattled it, pounded the glass, nothing gave. Garage door, manual release, chain hanging from the opener track. I yanked it. The mechanism clicked free. I pushed the heavy sectional upward. It stopped halfway, like invisible hands pressed down from above. I shoved with both shoulders, muscles burned. The door creaked, trembled, then slammed back down so hard the whole frame rattled. I stood there panting, staring at the sealed garage. Outside, my Subaru sat in the driveway, keys in my pocket. Engine probably wouldn't start, but I had to try. I sprinted back through the house, living room, foyer, front door again. This time, the knob turned. Easy. Too easy. I stepped onto the porch. Cool night air hit my face. Crickets sang in the woods. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. I ran down the steps, across the gravel, threw the bags into the passenger seat, slid behind the wheel. Key in ignition. Turn. Click. Nothing. Not even a crank. Battery dead? No lights on the dash. No chime. Just silence. I tried again. Same nothing. Headlights suddenly blazed, full beam, from inside the house. Every window glowed white hot, like the place was on fire from within. Then they flickered. Slow, rhythmic. 1, 2, 1, 2. Like a heartbeat. I stared, couldn't look away. The lights pulsed faster. The house seemed to lean forward, porch columns stretching like ribs. I fumbled the keys out, dropped them, bent to pick them up. When I looked up again, the front door stood wide open. Inviting. I don't remember deciding to go back inside. My body just moved. Legs carried me up the steps, across the threshold. The door closed behind me. Soft click. Deadbolt slid home. I stood in the foyer, bags still outside in the car, phone in my pocket, no signal now. I'd checked. The house had cut me off. Midnight came quiet. No screams, no rocking chair, no shadows at the foot of the bed. Just waiting. I went upstairs anyway. Guest room, my last safe space. Locked the door, wedged the chair, sat on the bed with my back to the headboard, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them. The clock on my phone ticked to 12:03. Silence. Then it started. Not outside my head this time. Inside. A low hum at first, vibration in my skull. Then words, not spoken, thought, pushed into my mind like cold fingers sliding between the folds of my brain. You bought the house. Deep, wet, layered, like a dozen voices speaking at once, overlapping, echoing. You bought us. I pressed my palms to my ears. Didn't help. The voice was inside. We were waiting. My chest tightened. Breath came short. Your fear tastes sweet. I whimpered. Couldn't stop it. Your loneliness, delicious. Memories flashed, unbidden. My last boyfriend walking out, my mom crying on the phone after dad left, nights alone in Chicago staring at the ceiling. The house had tasted them all, savored them. Give us more. Tendrils, cold, invisible, slivered up my spine, wrapped around my ribs, squeezed. Not hard enough to break bone, just enough to remind me they could. I felt it then, really felt it. Pulling, not at my body, deeper, at the core of me. Pieces fraying, memories flickering like dying bulbs. My first kiss, gone blurry. The smell of my childhood home, fading. My own laugh, I couldn't hear it in my head anymore. My name, Emily Harper. It felt distant, like a name I'd read in a book once. The voice laughed, low, satisfied, wet bubbles popping. You're almost ready. The tendrils tightened. One slipped into my chest, through skin, through bone, like smoke through cracks, wrapped around my heart, squeezed gently. My pulse stuttered. I gasped. Flashes. Clara's face, older, hollow, staring at me from the mirror I'd covered. Abigail's small hands reaching out, not for help, for me, to pull me in. The room darkened. Not lights off, light bending, shadows thickening at the edges, crawling towards the bed. I tried to scream, throat closed. The voice whispered, close now.
intimate. We've waited so long for someone like you. Alone, hungry for a home. You've fed us well. Another squeeze. My vision tunneled. Black spots danced. I clawed at my chest. Nothing to grab, nothing to fight. Then, sudden, sharp, a memory surfaced. Clear, bright. My mom teaching me to ride a bike. Summer grass, her laugh. "You've got this, baby girl. Keep pedaling." I held onto it, clung. The tendrils hesitated. The voice hissed. No. It pulled harder. The memory frayed at the edges. I whispered, barely audible. No. The house answered. "You can't leave. You're part of us now." I felt it deep in my core, something tearing loose, a piece of me, small, vital, gone. My heartbeat slowed. 1 beat, 2 beats. The shadows closed in. I don't know how long I sat there, minutes, hours. The voice softened, almost gentle. "Rest now. We'll take the rest when you sleep." I closed my eyes. Not surrender, not yet, but close, so close.
It's 4:17 a.m. now. I'm sitting on the front porch steps, back against the railing, laptop balanced on my knees. The screen blows the only light out here, cold blue cutting through the dark. Battery at 8%. Won't last long. The night air is thick with humidity, the kind that clings to your skin and makes every breath feel heavy. Crickets have gone quiet. Even the woods behind the house are silent, like everything's holding its breath, waiting for what I do next. 2 red plastic gasoline cans sit at my feet, 5 gallons each. I bought them yesterday at the hardware store on the edge of town. The clerk, same guy from before, Dale, asked if I was finally getting around to that bonfire pit I'd mentioned once. I smiled, said, yeah, something like that. Paid cash. Didn't meet his eyes. Matches in my pocket. A book of them, the kind you get free at diners. The cover has Millie's Diner logo, faded red pie slice. I keep running my thumb over it, feeling the rough cardboard, grounding myself, reminding myself there was a world outside these walls once. Inside the house, the rocking chair is moving again. Slow, deliberate, back and forth. I can hear it through the open front door. Creak, 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 like a heartbeat that's learned patience. It's not rushing. It knows I'm still here. It knows I haven't left. I tried one last time to drive away, an hour ago. Walked to the Subaru, threw the duffel in the back seat, turned the key. Engine caught this time, rough, coughing, but alive. I put it in drive, foot on the gas. The car lurched forward, maybe 10 feet, then stopped, hard, like hitting an invisible wall of molasses. Tires spun, gravel sprayed, engine screamed. I floored it. Nothing. The house filled the rearview mirror, every window dark except the 3rd floor turret, where a single faint light pulsed, slow, mocking. I killed the ignition, sat there shaking. Tears burned my eyes, but didn't fall. I got out, slammed the door, walked back up the steps. The front door was already open, waiting. Now I'm here. Porch, gasoline, matches, laptop. I've been typing this story in pieces for days, saving it to a cloud drive I barely remember the password for. If I disappear, if I don't make it out, maybe someone finds it. Maybe someone reads it and understands. Maybe someone burns this place to ash before it finds the next person. The house doesn't like that I'm out here. The porch light just flickered. 3 quick blinks. Warning or invitation. Hard to tell anymore. My body feels wrong, hollow, like someone carved out everything soft and left only bone and echoes. I haven't eaten in 2 days? 3? Food tastes like dust. Water tastes like metal. My hands shake when I type, skin stretched tight over knuckles. Veins stand out blue and ropey.
I look down at my arms, thin, bruised, and barely recognize them. The thing inside me doesn't whisper anymore. It doesn't need to. We're past conversation. It just is. A cold weight in my chest, a slow squeeze around my heart. Every few minutes it tugs, gentle, almost tender, and another piece of me unravels. A memory, a feeling, a fragment of who I used to be. This morning I tried to call my mom. Phone showed no bars. I walked to the end of the driveway. Still nothing. I screamed her name into the dark. Nothing answered. Not even an echo. I'm scared. Not of dying. I think I passed that fear weeks ago. I'm scared of what happens after, of becoming part of it, of my voice joining the whispers in the walls, of some other woman buying this house someday, too cheap, too perfect, and hearing my screams at midnight, of my face appearing in the crayon drawings taped to the locked room walls, stick figure, long hair, mouth open in a silent O. The rocking chair just stopped. Dead silence. Then, soft, from inside, the basement door creaked open. I heard it, slow hinges, one long groan. It's calling me back. I can feel the pull. Not physical, deeper, like gravity shifted and the house is downhill now. Every cell in my body wants to walk inside, lie down on the parlor floor, let the floorboards open, let the black roots slide in, let it finish. Part of me wants to, because if I let it take the rest, the hurting stops, the emptiness fills. No more fighting, no more fear, just quiet. But another part, small, stubborn, flickering, remembers the bike, summer grass, mom's laugh. Keep pedaling, baby girl. I keep that piece clutched tight. It's all I have left. The laptop battery warning pops up. 5%. Red icon blinking. I have to decide. Gasoline cans heavy at my feet. I could carry them inside, pour trails through the foyer, up the stairs, into every room, douse the rocking chair, the locked room, the basement stairs, light one match, walk out, watch it burn. Or I could walk back inside, close the door, lie down, let it finish me. The house is quiet now, too quiet, like it's listening. I stand up, legs wobble. I grab the railing to steady myself. The porch light flickers again, once, slow. I look at the cans, then at the open door. The rocking chair starts again, soft, inviting. Creak, creak. I take one step toward the doorway, then stop. My hand goes into my pocket, pulls out the matches. I strike one. Tiny flame dances between my fingers, bright, alive. The house answers. Every window flares white for a second, then dark again. I hold the match higher, whisper to the dark. Not tonight. The flame gutters, almost dies. I cup my hand around it, protect it. Another step back, away from the door. The rocking chair slams hard against the wall inside. Wood cracks. I don't flinch. I blow out the match, strike another. This time, I don't hesitate. I toss it towards the nearest gasoline can. The porch erupts. Flames roar up fast. Greedy, orange, hungry in their own way. I back down the steps. Heat washes over me. Windows shatter upstairs, one after another, like screams. The house groans, deep, angry. I keep backing away, into the yard, into the grass. The fire climbs. Porch collapses in a shower of sparks. The turret window glows red, then black. Something moves inside the flames, tall, thin, reaching. I don't look away. The roof catches, timbers pop, the whole structure shudders. I stand there until the battery dies and the laptop screen goes black, until the only light is fire, until the sirens start in the distance, far off, coming closer. I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if it's gone. But for the first time in months, I can breathe. And my name feels like mine again. Emily Harper. Still here, still fighting.
for now.